The following news flash is brought to you by the Lone Star Lowdown, providing your daily bulletins for the commodities market. Today in history, news updates, and the inside scoop into the tides of the alternative. Markets for Wednesday, March 2nd, 2016 are currently trading with gold at $1,240 an ounce, silver $14.98 an ounce, Texas crude $34.40 a barrel, and Bitcoin is currently sitting at about 429 U.S. currency. Today in history, the year 1807, the U.S. Congress passes an act to prohibit the importation of slaves into any port or place within the jurisdiction of the United States. However, the widespread trade of slaves within the South was not prohibited since the children of slaves automatically became slaves themselves. The act prohibiting importation of slaves of 1807 went into effect January 1st, 1808. The beginning of U.S. abolition was today in history. In recent news, President Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama will both appear later this month at South by Southwest. The president is scheduled to take part in a discussion on March 11th with Evan Smith, editor of the Texas Tribune, on civic engagement and the role of innovative technology in increasing participation in politics and even solving major problems like climate change. On March 16th, the First Lady will be discussing her Let Girls Learn initiative, which aims to help an estimated 62 million girls around the world have access to basic higher education. This will make the Obamas the first president and First Lady to appear at South by Southwest in its 30-year history. Lawyer Jose Refugio Rodriguez said today that his client, drug lord Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, said he wants to be extradited as soon as possible to the United States because guards at the Mexican maximum security prison aren't letting him sleep. Mr. Rodriguez is wanting to negotiate with the U.S. authorities for a lighter sentence and a stay at a medium security prison instead. Radio Formula reported El Chapo fears that his health will worsen because of the isolated conditions in the Mexican prison and the possibility that the lack of sleep could cause a heart attack or a stroke. The process of extradition may take up to a year. The world's biggest seller of corn and soybean seeds and the maker of Roundup weed killer, Monsanto Corporation, issued a profit warning today. They are forecasting a cut to the midpoint of its fiscal 2006 profit by at least 11%. This is after they announced laying off 3,600 employees, roughly 16% of its global workforce. Monsanto shares recently went down 7.5% and have shed a total of 29% during the past year. This is Rick Brody with your lowdown for March 2nd, 2016.
Had a bad trip. It was all very good. No one had a bad trip. It was all very good. Nope. It was all very good.
I walk when they say run, and I run when they shoot me up. Now they won't let me out of the asylum. No, they won't let me out of the asylum. I've got to get up, 'cause here they come. It's not so easy to get up for some. I'm broken, and I'm insane.
No one had a bad trip.
If you saw what I saw, you'd be the same.
And good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're listening to us on the nationally syndicated Logos Radio Network. This is Be Brave Radio, and we will be joining you for the next 3 hours from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central Time today and every Saturday as we bring you, where do we go from here? I mean, I think it's pretty appropriate that we picked Asylum from 333 as our theme song, because after what happened this week between the elections, the award shows, and just everything else in between, I think we got something just amazing to tell you guys. I'm Leland Freeman. I'm joined by John Bush, Elizabeth Egan Everett, and also joining us for today is Danny and Chris from The Crypto Show. And we don't have any set guests specifically, so let's just talk about the week that was. Elizabeth, take it away.
And what a week it was. Goodness gracious. Last Saturday was just such a goodness gracious, such a special day. We had Roger Stone come in, first of all, during our radio show. We had, something like 2 international film crews. We had 9 guests, all talented.
9 people altogether.
9 people coming in.
Including the 3 of us.
Yeah, so it was a packed show. Just, I would say it's one of my favorite shows that we've done so far. But then, the evening was this magical event where, our community really stepped up and really came out. In many ways, I must say thank you so much to Alex Jones and InfoWars and their crew for really, standing by Roger Stone and promoting him and promoting the event.
And also live streaming it as well. And we'll also be having video of the full presentation up shortly at youtube.com/bravenewbooks.
Well, I think the thing that was so cool was to see the community just step it up. I mean, from all angles, from all kinds of ways of seeing it and opinions and paradigms, everyone just kind of came together and really supported the event. And it was a magical night. I had so much fun. I think everybody did. And Roger really got to get his message out. So we're really grateful. Especially, Alex promoted it 3 times on his show and even said that he was going to drop by. And I think that definitely made a difference to having more audience members show up, and very, very Jedi.
And we love Roger Stone, and we appreciate him that he always picks Brave New Books as his favorite location in Austin, Texas, to broadcast, or not broadcast, but broadcast on our radio show, but also do his book signings. The fact that each one of his books, whether it was the first book, The Case Against LBJ, which is the New York Times bestseller, Nixon's Secrets, The Clintons' War on Women, and now most recently Jeb and the Bush Crime Family, he always picked Brave New Books as his first choice in Austin to have the book signing. And we appreciate and we love you, Roger, for taking us, as well as willing to be a regular contributor on Be Brave Radio. So we'll probably have him at least once a month.
He's an amazing asset to the community, such a wealth of knowledge. And I'm looking forward to the book signing for his 5th book when he does an expose on Donald Trump after maybe 4 years.
That's
going to be his 6th book. His 5th book that he's actually co-writing with St. John Hunt is about the JFK Jr. mysterious death by a plane crash.
There's no shortage of topics to write interesting books on these days.
And I think what we're all trying to push him to write the next best-selling book about would be all about 9/11, because there's so much technical and scientific information now that is, traceable, that is findable. That, for example, if you go looking into the Architects and Engineers Foundation, there are over 2,400 architects and engineers who have absolutely put their careers on the line, who have made the stand to say, the official narrative is not what it seems. And what about those 28 redacted pages that are confidential?
That Donald Trump has actually,
get them out.
That Donald Trump has stated that he wants to have released once he becomes president.
Yeah. The Trumpster. They're not going to like that. Apparently they show that Saudi Arabia participated in Major League, which was already came out that the Saudis, what I'm referring is the Pakistani head of the ISI gave $100,000 to Mohammed Atta. That was something that was already revealed and actually published on mainstream.
Well, also the fact that the Bush administration flew many members of the Bin Laden family out of
27 members, as far as I know,
during the national no-fly zone.
Yeah, I mean, and the one you want to research a couple different names. There's Omar al-Bayoum, who supposedly was the financier from the Saudi royal family that was connected in with that. And then you also want to research Tim Osman, and Tim Osman was Osama bin Laden's kind of handle when he basically worked for them for many, many years. There's so many levels to this, and the scary thing is that I still know people that absolutely think that we're all, crazy, even though we've been doing the research for years,
Well, and crazy for also suggesting that the immigration system is completely broken.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is at this point. The whole thing is just a charade of itself at this point. We just, there's so many angles we can go to right now. Isn't there some church service or something going on right now at the store? I mean, we have our first event today, I think, with our friend.
Yeah, come on down now through 12 o'clock. And Stephen Jones is hosting Freedom Fellowship. And there's about 15 or 16, 17 folks in there right now getting their worship on. And it's a good vibe and good energy. It's an underground church, no 501c3. So we're really pleased to be able to offer an underground church and an underground bookstore.
On this March 5th, 2016, each and every Saturday.
Sabbath.
Each and every Saturday. It goes from 10:30 to noon.
12. Yeah. Wow. Then you can stick around and check out the lovely bookstore. And of course, after our program, you can hear from the Burke guys with Nourishment for the Spiritual Warrior. And then Ben Farmer and Nick of the Libertarian Party, they have their program, The Voice of Reason. And the Libertarian Party convention is coming up. Isn't it in April?
April sometime. I think it's April 6th.
Aren't you guys having a convention coming up?
Oh, actually, well, I've got
grand old party.
Precinct. I mean, did you just come from somewhere?
I just came from my precinct convention.
Yeah, and I'm going to mine.
Actually, it was actually a bunch of cruise people. And it was an interesting mix. There was two senior citizens that were there, and also a few college students as well. So it was an interesting mix and dynamic. And the thing that keep in mind is that the older gentlemen that were there, they're actually more liberty minded than the students. The students were all about Ted Cruz and they were kind of hesitant.
Wow.
But the older gentlemen, they knew of Brave New Books, and we were telling them,
way.
yeah, they're probably going to come down here, and we told the students.
Did the Cruz supporters have any mention of tax breaks for boogers?
Danny, getting back to the immigration real quick, Danny will be talking about your trip through Mexico with Anarchapulco and what happened trying to get back into the United States.
God, well, there's so many angles. I mean, like which subject do we want to talk about?
Yeah, Chris is kind of a big guy, so he was really hard to smuggle in, but I literally had to smuggle him into the U.S.
Wow. He had his papers. He couldn't find his papers.
I had a residential, what do you call it? A resident alien with me. He was no problem to get in.
Yeah.
But U.S. citizens, you have to bring out your passports.
It's an interesting time to be alive, I mean, there's all kinds of dynamics and, directions. But no, I'm about to go to my precinct in a couple hours. Yeah, that's going to be really entertaining and enlightening and educational for me. And
yours is what I call at the catch-all location, where there's literally 20 precinct conventions going on at the same time. And this is after the we'll get to that in a bit later, too. The Republican chairman election.
Robert Morrow, our good friend Robert Morrow,
I'm a proud supporter of Robert Morrow, so
member of the Liberty community for years now. He won the chairman of the Travis County Republican Party, which is pretty strange because he's quite the character. Of course, he co-wrote the Clinton's War on Women along with Roger Stone, and he seems to have quite the fascination, some would call it an obsession, with large-breasted women.
On his Facebook page.
On his Facebook page.
I'm going to bring up his Twitter real quick.
And he also is very passionate about exposing the Bush men as pedophiles, the Clintons as rapists and cover-up artists, and LBJ as an assassin of JFK. And he is not afraid to hide it and not afraid to communicate it in the most vulgar and disgusting ways, which is why it's so absolutely wonderful, in my opinion, and Danny's, that he is now the chair of the Travis County Republican Party, because there's a lot of establishment Republicans that are flipping out. And there's like reports where they're saying, we're going to do whatever we can to figure out rules to pressure him. Almost sounding like they're going to coerce him into stepping down.
Abbott even came out and said that he's going to do something about it.
Really?
Well, but hang on, though. They say the only real way is if they pull a Scalia on him, because supposedly there's nothing, legally nothing. Come on.
He was popularly elected.
If I were him,
exactly.
I would park my car in a remote location and take an Uber into any meeting so that they don't plant drugs in my car and have me arrested.
Or, well, his cars are too old to hack the firmware. But let me read some of his tweets, shall we? Why is that not...
Get the beat button ready.
I love the music, dude. What? That's awesome.
This is one of his tamer ones. Never glory or worship politicians. My God, you are insane if you do.
Pretty basic.
Let's see here. Robert Morrow goes global. Full frontal assault on the corrupt leaders of GOP, demo, and scum MSM enablers. I have never met Stickland. However, he is my hero. Owns the back mic at the house. I'm surprised he never met Jonathan Stickland. I've actually met him a few times. It's cool.
Get to the good stuff.
That Rick Perry, such a phony in so many ways. A Bilderberger screaming about secession. Laughable. These are tame. These are tame. Oh, rampaging bisexual adulterers splash all over the world headlines. Oh, the joy.
Well, things have gotten very entertaining here, in Travis County. Come on now. Look, here's the thing.
With those blankety blank mother blanks better not sue me. Only dish out the truth, especially on Bush or Clinton. Roses are red, violets are blue. Bill Clinton has herpes on his. I can't say that. How about you?
There's so much press about this. It's absolutely amazing. If you Google Robert Morrow Twitter, there's all sorts of news articles. Washington Post covered it. LGBTQ Nation. Jezebel, Dallas Morning News. You said there was some international press as well?
48. He sent out an email. There are 48 different press organizations. Australia, New York Times, New York Daily News, which a lot of these guys, Texas Tribune, lifted my photos and clipped out my watermarks. Bad on you guys.
I guess the issue that I have around all this is that, yes, so he's radically honest. And what frustrates me is that in many ways, this gives a little bit of a bad slant to people who are trying to expose what's actually truly going on in our world.
I'm his friend.
That's my issue.
Yeah, I was his friend and I voted for James Dickey. Partially because James is actually a really good chair, but yeah.
You sure it's not because you're trying to cozy up to the Republican establishment?
And with that, we're actually coming up on our first break of this broadcast. This is Be Brave Radio. We'll be back after this short break on the Logos Radio Network. Stay tuned.
You are listening to the Logos Radio Network. LogosRadioNetwork.com.
And welcome back to Be Brave Radio here on the Logos Radio Network. LogosRadioNetwork.com and affiliates across the country, including Austin with 89.1 TXLR. And please support the Logos Radio Network. The fundraiser is going on until March 17th. It helps keep the lights on and keep this free speech radio network going. Go to LogosRadioNetwork.com. Prizes include a Spikes Skull lower receiver from Central Texas Gunworks, as well as a Taurus Curve. There's also prizes from My Magic Mud and Danny
From All About Vapor.
And so every $25 donation gets you entered into the prize drawing, and there is no limit to that. We're also brought to you by Brave New Books, Hill Country Home Improvement, Nature's Pure Organics, Burke Superfoods, and Cabo Bob's Burritos, with 2 locations in Austin, Texas, on Ben White and the North Drag. They have these amazing burritos. They are really
They're especially tasty this morning. I just had one. It was awesome.
And then they cook
You can
tortillas.
see it in his beard. It looked really good.
And they cook tortillas right in front of you, which John doesn't get to partake because he's doing the whole paleo diet because he thinks he has a gluten problem. But they have these amazing tortillas that they cook right in front of you.
Thinks he has a gluten problem.
Wait,
Might as
John,
well do air quotes there.
John eats cavemen?
It's not paleo. It's gluten free. But it's my opinion that everyone has a gluten intolerance. They just don't know it because they never go without gluten. So they're constantly living in a little tiny bit of funk.
I have a high gluten intolerance. I'm tired of people talking about gluten.
I have a high glutes tolerance.
They also use fresh ingredients.
Your glutes, the muscles?
Yeah.
And they use fresh ingredients, and they have sugar, soda, no high fructose corn syrup there. It's Cabo Bob's Burritos.
Oh, she's choking on a burrito.
Hold on, let me perform the Heimlich.
Point is, support our sponsors because they are who are making the show possible. And I want to talk a second about longevity. If you listen to this program, if you listen to this network, you are probably familiar with Dr. Joel Wallach's longevity products, especially Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0. If you haven't tried it yet, definitely come down to the store. We have the little single packets that you can sample there. Well, it's $3.50. It's not a free sample, but sometimes we have a little picture of it going. But longevity is an amazing product. I've been taking the product for years. My wife takes it. My kids take it. And I just want to encourage everyone that you do have the opportunity to sign up as a distributor and get wholesale prices for all of those products. And then as your life has dramatically changed and you all of a sudden have more energy, you look more vibrant and healthy, and all your friends are asking you what your secret is, you can share with them that you take Tangy Tangerine every day, OsteoFX, glucogel, essential fatty acids. And if they sign up as a distributor, you can actually get a little bit of commission for their sales. If you want to take it to another level, also, you could turn it into a business and eventually get a part-time or even a full-time salary out of it.
And all this supports Brave New Books and a Logos Radio Network.
And by the way, just real quick, I want to give a quick testimonial.
BTW.
This is Chris from The Crypto Show, also on 89.1 FM, of course.
The Chris Victor.
The Chris Victor.
I drink Tangy Tangerine and or Pollen Burst before every show, unless, the rare occasion that we're out or something. And it
Which
always
never
helps,
happens.
Which never happens. I was just kidding about that. But it gives me great mental clarity. And when I used to wait tables, it was the greatest thing. I would work lunch shifts and I would take Tangy Tangerine. I wouldn't even eat breakfast just because I was in a hurry. And as my metabolism started to rise, I would get this extra burst of energy from the Tangy Tangerine. It was so helpful. I really love this stuff.
And I personally take Tangy Tangerine every morning.
Have you tried meth? It works pretty good.
Oh, boy.
Oh, dude.
That works too.
Breaking Bad with Danny Sessoms.
And then there's those of you who also want to work a little more, nature-based, like really nature-based. And some of my favorites are the Burke Superfoods. For example, the uber natural version of Tangy Tangerine is something called pine pollen. And literally,
Also known as?
well, Songhuofen. That's Pinyin Chinese name, but it's also the
What'd you call me?
It's the king of pollen, and it has over 200 different nutrients in it. Now, mind you, it doesn't have the same kind of taste. You got to kind of get through that taste. But if you feel like you want to work with, an even more closer to nature, version, then we also have that here.
I don't think it tastes bad. I think, if anything, it doesn't really have any taste.
Yeah,
the pine pollen?
Yeah, I use it, and it tastes perfectly fine. I
put it in my coffee, and it's what is it? The dragon flower. I love
it.
that.
Gotta love it.
It's very, very cool.
So come on down to Brave New Books. We have a wide variety of health products, and every product that you purchase helps to keep us alive here at the store. We're not exactly raking in the dough, not yet. But we really keep this place alive in large part for the community service that we're providing here. It's a community center. We bring you great guests like Roger Stone and Alex Jones. So if you want to keep the store alive for another decade, we're coming up on 1 decade, then come support us and sign up for longevity. All your purchases retail here at the store not only support the bookstore, but they also support Logos Radio Network. Harlan Dietrich, the previous owner of the store, and all the way up the line to Alex Jones himself and his team. So come on in and purchase the product, or if you want to learn more about signing up as a distributor, we can get you signed up, anybody there behind the register. We can also help to facilitate your purchases too, which is a service that we offer to a limited number of people. If you don't want to mess with the computer, the back end, or if you're one of those crazy privacy freaks that doesn't like to give out your credit card online, we can help facilitate the transaction for you and take all of the guesswork out of it. So that's my little plug there. Help keep us going, folks.
Well, and I definitely think in these times it's very, very important to support your fellow tribe members, your fellow friends, your fellow men and women, so whether that means going out to the local farmers market, and, buying your groceries there, or coming to, see us here at Brave New Books, or maybe working with InfoWars with some of their supplements. There's a couple different ways to really support at the grassroots level, people that are actually on the front lines doing an awful lot of work right now to sustain ourselves and to make a difference and to get messages out there that really do matter.
Yep. And we're going to talk about that here in a sec. We're going to give you some updates on Super Tuesday and do the political thing, but we're going to spend a few segments also talking about alternatives to voting. There's a lot of people that are amped up and excited, rightfully so, when election season comes around. But I always want to remind people that whether there's an election going on or not, there are actions that you can take, you, your community, and your family, in order to find more freedom, whether Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, or Gary Johnson, is elected president. There's things you can do.
Gary the loser Johnson. Remember the last time we had a Johnson in the White House? What happened there?
Oh, boy.
Dude.
Tell us what you really think.
Okay.
I think he's, obviously he'd be better than the alternatives because he's somewhat of a libertarian, but he's kind of a tool and lame and soft.
Vermin Supreme is an alternative. I love that choice.
Vermin's going to run for Libertarian Party.
We all get a free
John McAfee. Now that would be someone I would consider.
Somebody tell us about Vermin Supreme. Who is
wait
that
a minute.
guy?
How about Mauro Makoviak, 2016?
Mo
That would be
Makoviak's
awesome.
the vice chair who's like all up in arms, like, Moro's going to ruin our party.
It's so weird because Mauro says he didn't spend a penny or ask anybody to vote for him. So that means I spent more effort and energy to win my steering committee seat on TAG by one vote, and then Mauro didn't do anything, and he got his thing by
Well, the
6,000.
problem is you don't have
race.
that WASP name. That's the problem. Freeman? Sorry. No, I was kidding.
Everybody calls themselves
look,
Freeman.
at the end of the day, when look, let's all cop to a little bit of truth here. I know that in certain times when I've voted and I've really prepped and really done my research on certain candidates, as we're going down the little vote, I'll start to see things that I just haven't done my work on, and then I'll pick something, out of my nose. I mean,
you can abstain. You don't have to vote in every election.
Well,
that's why I
just
write
don't
in.
vote.
No,
I
but
wr't
they'll
in
be-
cartoon characters because I already know about them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
but electronic voting.
literally the only election you voted for the past 5 years was my election.
That's right, the TAG steering committee. My dad, I was proud to hear, he went and voted. I was like, did you vote for Trump? Come on now. Even though we have some Trump voters in the room. He said, no, I voted in the Democratic primary, and the only people I voted for were two of my neighbors, one of which was running for district attorney. He didn't win, and then there was a sitting judge around the corner that did win. So I was proud of my dad for not, he says they're all bozos. So
Your dad voted for Gary Cobb?
No, not Gary Cobb. It was Rick Reed's our neighbor. He's a little bit anti. I mean, he's not the incumbent, but they have a Bernie sign in front of their yard. Better than a Clinton sign.
They had a good person on the Democratic side running for sheriff. He didn't win, unfortunately. It was Todd Radford, the Lakeway police chief.
Sisson's come to Texans for Accountable Government.
I don't think he won either. It was some established. It was a lady. So it was on. If Todd Radford won the nomination for sheriff, I would have had to basically go like, now who am I voting for sheriff? But it's clearly I'm going to vote for the Republican this go around.
Let's talk about some of the Super Tuesday results, especially some of the local stuff that
I think we should
is germane to our listeners. Yeah, coming up on the other side of the break, I want to talk about Lone Star gun rights. They actually had an impact in a race against someone who was soft on their gun position. I think that's going to carry some weight and some leverage for them coming up in the session.
And she lost by several hundred pounds. And so the interesting thing is that they
pounds, wow.
be taking several hundred votes. Precinct convention takes a lot out of you, my friends.
Leland, you're hitting a lot of bases today.
He's all over the place. Let's give it up for Leland Freeman, ladies and gentlemen. He really does a lot for this radio show and for the bookstore, and he's a blessing to be in our community.
And we'll be back on Be Brave Radio after this short break on the Logos Radio Network right after this.
Did you know that cell phones can cause constipation, anorexia, and depression if they get into the wrong hands? Or should I say the wrong jaws? I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht, and I'll be back with a painful saga of Gina's wireless woes in just a moment.
Privacy is under attack. When you give up data about yourself, you'll never get it back again. And once your privacy is gone, you'll find your freedoms will start to vanish too. So protect your rights, say no to surveillance, and keep your information to yourself. Privacy, it's worth hanging on to. This public service announcement is brought to you by StartPage.com, the private search engine alternative to Google, Yahoo, and Bing. Start over with StartPage.
Remember Tick-Tock, the crocodile from Peter Pan? He swallowed an alarm clock, and his ticking could be heard all across Never Never Land. Well, a modern-day twist on this fairy tale story recently happened at an aquarium in the Ukraine. Gina, a 14-year-old crocodile, now emits a Nokia ringtone from the depths of her stomach. She swallowed the smartphone when a visitor accidentally dropped it into her tank last month. Unfortunately, the ringing reptile isn't feeling too good after her high-tech snack. She's not eating and she's moving lethargically. I guess there's not an app for that. Gina's handlers plan a surgery to retrieve the phone, but I'm guessing its owner won't be wanting it back. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht. More news and information at CatherineAlbrecht.com.
You're listening to the Logos Radio Network at logosradionetwork.com.
Welcome back to the Crypto Show.
Wait a minute.
Sorry.
What day is it right now?
Sunday?
No, it's Saturday, Chris.
Saturday, my bad.
And welcome back to Be Brave Radio. But we do have Danny and Chris from the Crypto Show joining us to talk about their experience driving through Mexico with Anarchapulco. But before we get to that, let's talk about what happened on Super Tuesday. And let's first touch on, Lone Star Gun Rights and their success in defeating Marsha Farney by several hundred votes. I'm thinking pounds.
Can you elaborate on that?
Well, the reason why I was thinking pounds was because we were talking about before the last segment. Was it the Healthy Body Challenge you want us to do, John?
That's right. Leland,
Are we still doing that?
Yeah, and we're announcing it now, so it can't go back now. It's on the radio.
Well, that's pretty lame on their part if they only won by a couple hundred. They should have got Robert Morrow to run their campaign so they would have won by thousands.
Do nothing. Do nothing campaign.
Actually, a few hundred votes, or to be exact. And the way they did it was they did not necessarily, I can't even remember who the guy that defeated Marsha Farney, but the way they successfully beat Marsha Farney is they did a full-on negative campaign against Marsha Farney and did not endorse the other guy necessarily, but they said Marsha Farney was clearly against gun rights. That what Lone Star Gun Rights did is that every single Republican that was running for office, whether it was the House of Representatives or the Senate, they put out a survey and a declaration via certified mail. So every single candidate signed for these surveys. And it's interesting is that Marsha signed the... Marsha signed the certified letter receipt herself, but she refused to turn in either the declaration or even fill out the survey.
The real question is whose name was first on the ballot.
We'll see. That's it.
But that's
how Robert won.
No, and the thing is that James took the high road and didn't do a negative campaign, which if James won the one, he probably should have had Justin DeLosh and Lone Star Gun Rights block walk for him. And so that's what they did to defeat Marsha Farney. And the thing is, Marsha Farney had $50,000 dumped into her campaign by Joe Strauss. And the fact is that Joe Strauss and the way he runs the Texas House of Representatives as Speaker is a tumor. It is a disease that needs to be eradicated.
He does not like Joe Strauss.
Are you?
And so,
Leland, you're on crack.
I wish I was. I wish I was. Sadly, I'm on Starbucks coffee and whatever these burritos are. Which
Quesos Tacos. We should get them as a sponsor all the money that we give them.
We eat them enough.
Marsha Farney replied to them and said, I have an A+ rating with the NRA, so you can see my position on guns from that.
Well, she didn't even say that.
And we know the NRA is kind of lame. So is the Texas NRA.
The Texas State Rifle Association, the fact that they both back Joe Strauss as Speaker. Joe Strauss is against constitutional carry. In fact, he's also against pretty much expanding any gun rights. If you look what happened during this past session, you had the Texas Senate pass open carry and campus carry, SB 11, and their version of open carry, which was SB 17, which was originally identical to HB 910, which is the bill that ended up passing. That ended up going out of that chamber in March. Strauss didn't even assign it to the Homeland Security Committee, which everyone knew that's...
Do you happen to know his stance on ponies?
Not as good as Vermin Supremes.
Pony-based economy.
He and Bernie should get together, just like all that free stuff, right? You get a pony and you get free indoctrination.
Nice. Which one's more believable?
Yeah.
So these guys campaigned against this woman by going door to door and passing out a simple flyer that just said, she's afraid to tell you your position. How can you trust this woman? And they actually won. I enjoy campaigning against people. If people remember Randy Shade, former city councilwoman, and I emphasize former, we ran a campaign against her. It was an unofficial tag thing, and we made signs that mocked her sign that were the same mock-up and colors. And instead of saying Randy Shade, different like Austin, it said Shady the Clown, all your rights belong to us.
And there's another one that's actually hanging up on the other wall of the studio that says Shady the Tyrant, Austin corrupt just like Washington.
Instead of different. And we put these signs up all around her signs. And she actually was reportedly stole one of them and went to a polling place and took one down. So I called the police and filed a police report and put out a press release trying to make some news out of it, and one outlet did pick it up. But it put them on tilt, and it caused them to react, and she ended up losing. Another time, we made some signs that said fail real big, political corrugated signs, and we pointed them next to Mike Martinez's signs.
Wow.
And it was great because the Austin Chronicle was all up in arms like, these guys are disobeying the election law. But if you actually look at the election law, you're required to have a disclosure statement, political advertisement paid for by so-and-so. If you are engaging in express advocacy, if you're advocating for one candidate or one position over another. So if you're saying vote for, vote against, support, do not support, then you're required to have the disclosure statement. So if you're simply saying Shady the Clown, corrupt like
it's parody. It's parody and protected under the First Amendment. I mean, that's how Saturday Night Live was able to get away with doing what they're doing for the past 40 years.
Well, I think that is one of the things that I do have an issue with, for example, around Trump, which he came forward and he wanted to look at the libel laws of the journalists that were making fun of him. And look, on the other hand, I really am not okay with the character assassination that they've got going on him right now. But I do have an issue with the idea of libel laws or, our ability to be able to have satire and parody, because that's how we get information through, whether it's us or InfoWars or Roger Stone's books or exposing these truths. We need to have those libel laws in place to protect us. And that for me was an issue of concern that did show up for me.
Right, the libel laws, if anything, limit free speech.
Well, so the whole point is that at least right now we can all get away with making a stance with how we feel and exposing certain truisms and things that we've found and we researched, and whether that's through humor or just, telling it like it is. But Trump did come out recently saying that he actually wanted to tighten them so that he could sue a lot of these journalists. And,
how insecure of him.
And that is, and sorry, there's a lot about him that I really do support, but
get him out of here.
No, but that's what and that whole thing about taking away that guy's coat, was I'm sorry,
that was cold,
but that is cold, so there are some issues there where that's a problem. Sorry.
I love that sound effect.
That is awesome.
Get your heart out. Yeah, the good old Trumpster. He also wants to regulate the internet and limit speech on the internet in order to deal with ISIS, which is a lot of problem reaction solution we see coming out of the Trumpster. And
how is that supposed to deal with ISIS? Is that in response to
them recruiting
cyber attack or something?
Media.
I think
let's just stop funding them. How about that? Can we stop funding them?
Yeah, that's a good start. Yes.
I think what Trump should do is he should watch this really good expose that Ben Swan put out about, was it 6 months ago or 9 months ago? Danny, how long ago was it about?
Truth in Media.
About the creation of ISIS?
Probably 5 or 6 months ago.
You're supposed to know this stuff.
The fact that Trump has openly said he wants to cut government waste, well, the first thing he could do is he can cut the funding to the organizations that are creating artificial problems, so that the government can come in and say, oh, we have this fake solution that costs even more money to the problem that we created in the first place.
Well, the thing is that by cutting budgets of these organizations is not going to make a difference, because a lot of things like ISIS are probably funded through black budgets.
Yeah, exactly.
That are financed through drug sales and other things.
We've seen
the fact that the fact that we didn't even pull the MRAPs out after we pulled out Iraq, and where do you think they're getting all the MRAPs and the Toyota? They got 100 trucks and all that stuff.
You heard about the guy who ran I don't know if it was a plumbing company or something, and ISIS got one of his trucks with his company name on it. And then he got all these he got all these death, well, except he got death threats.
The guy was from Houston. It was a plumbing company out of Houston.
Was that what it was?
Didn't I see an ISIS Hill Country Home Improvement truck?
We totally support it.
It's all black, just like the ISIS flag. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Why's it got to be a black thing?
I mean, did you see this video where I guess in Syria they were paying them $150 American dollars for ISIS fighters?
Oh, they're like a lot of mercenaries.
Yeah.
It's
that's
not
like
really like a
Ferguson.
passionate religious thing.
And then there's another video that's linked to it that shows the guys that work for the Pentagon that admitted it paying of $150 stipend for help. So you compare the two of them together, and it's obvious where
but you could also argue that was also what George Soros was doing when he was funding Ferguson, and he was actually paying agent provocateurs and protesters to make a mess of things. So we have a couple different angles being seeded right now by nefarious sorts. I mean, that's the thing that frustrates me so much with people who haven't been doing this research. They're all like, whatever political paradigm they want to stand for, they better look to find out who's funding these peeps.
We had interviewed a Syrian girl recently, and she gave us the links to all that and talked about it. So it's in our archives.
Oh, good.
But yeah, follow the money. That's an old adage when you do any investigative work, and people seem to fail to do that these days. So
the good old days. Well, you can expect us to follow the money all the way back to our own pockets as we subsidize the federal government and pay for our own oppression here on Be Brave Radio. We'll be right back on the other side of this break, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Stick with us. Get it while it's hot.
Yeah.
Easy.
I will never forget.
Welcome back to Be Brave Radio here on the Logos Radio Network on this March 5th, 2016. We were in the middle of talking about election madness that happened on this past Super Tuesday, and Trump-NATO went through a lot of the South, but he didn't get Texas, he didn't get Oklahoma.
Well, now there's conversations about the fact that a brokered convention is what the elitists are trying to do. They're going to try to steal away the people's vote and bring in ridiculous creatures like Mitt Romney. I mean, talk about pile of fail. Look at that. I mean, who would vote for that being, especially after, 4 years ago, basically kissing up to Trump?
Well, the strategy they're working on is that even on the states that Trump has won, they have a lot of these states have proportional delegate allocation. So if you have enough outliers that are still in the race that are taking votes away from Trump, Trump doesn't get a majority, he gets a plurality, which means he doesn't get all the states' delegates. So there's like a minimum delegate threshold that has automatic nomination. If Trump goes into the convention and he has more delegates than the other candidates, but doesn't hit that particular threshold, after the first round of voting, the delegates get unlocked. So
I'm gonna have to go.
That's not true for
I got to go with
state.
Mitt. I got to go with Mitt. Rand Paul endorsed Mitt. So.
Oh yeah, the Paul said it. Of course, Ron Paul endorsed Lamar Smith back in the day too. So
I'm sorry when somebody flip flops like that and basically backstabs someone that he used a few years before. Like maybe I would have been like that, but I'm sorry. For me as a female with like empathy and whatever, I can't do it. I've lost all respect for that man.
Did you have some already?
Not much.
When we talk about Mitt, or we talk about Rand?
No, I mean, I have much more respect for Rand, but sorry, Rand is not Ron, though, either. I mean,
no, he's not.
But look, here's the thing. I think that's what Rubio is. They're basically, Microsoft, let's remember, is the second highest donor to his campaign. Microsoft is running all the software. What a surprise that people were finding that when they went to check their votes, suddenly whoever they voted for was switched to Rubio.
Yeah, on the Todd and Don show on Super Tuesday here in Austin, Texas, a bunch of people were calling in and saying that their Trump votes were flipped to Rubio. I mean, think about it. Who would vote for Rubio? He's for amnesty. He's an establishment shill. He's not conservative.
Well, and Chris Christie, bless his little donut socks. I mean, that man literally in those 5 minutes, I feel like that's the reason why he incarnated on this planet, was to literally, in those few minutes at that debate, was to show Rubio for what a robotic parrot that he was. He couldn't be in the present moment at all. He had just this little, speech that he'd prepared that he repeated again and again and again. What, this is who we want as our POTUS? Please.
Yeah, we already had 8 years of that he couldn't speak on his own, but he has to have a teleprompter for everything.
So you're saying Ted Cruz?
Well,
Ted Cruz?
Don't start.
Goldman Sachs Cruz? Yeah.
The whole thing, this whole process, every single 4 years just illustrates more and more, if you're paying attention, why the whole system is a complete fraud. If it's not the voting machines taking the election outright, it's the super delegates and the convention. And my wife went to the RNC in 2008 and completely saw how everything was hijacked and stolen from Ron Paul. And the same thing happened in 2012.
Right.
Now, mind you, in 2012, they weren't really running to win. They were running to set up his son for 2016. But there were rules that were changed. There's all sorts of shenanigans that take place. So for anyone that is in favor of a dramatic change from the status quo, whether it's more liberty or more socialism on the Bernie side, you can expect that if you believe that participating in the system is going to bring about that change, it's unfortunate, but you're going to be very disappointed. And my only hope is that people see how fraudulent the system is and it's more and more exposed so we can move on to bigger and better things.
I think we are.
In the 2012 election here at the state convention in Fort Worth, actually the delegates that were elected, there was about 30% were Ron Paul delegates, and they had a huge effect on the convention. One of the things that they did is they stopped Rick Perry and Strauss, or no, not Perry, Dewhurst and Strauss from becoming delegates to the national convention. So the lieutenant governor and the speaker of the House were not even delegates because of the Ron Paul delegates.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
I just want to add to that, from the beginning of this country, there's been a major way in which elections are a fraud, at least at the presidential level, and that's the Electoral College.
Ah, yes.
I think it was as late as the 80s that they passed a law requiring Electoral College members to vote with the popular vote, or with whatever the state was won by which candidate. Prior to that, Electoral College members could change their vote away from the popular vote or for whatever candidate the state went to, if they so desired. And think about what grounds for corruption that must have been over the years. So anyway, don't trust the system is my opinion, but Bernie Sanders 2016.
No. Come on,
No,
wait a minute.
Feel
You
the
got to
burn.
explain that.
Wait, let me
You gotta explain that.
Let me give you the anarchist case
Thank
for
you.
Bernie Sanders, by the way.
Oh, okay.
No,
Let's hear
I'm
it.
just kidding.
Okay,
But I've seen videos like that. It creeps me out.
Bernie clause?
It is, and let me tell you, I had this moment on social media with this old ex-friend of mine, and the word is kind of ex, but I mean, no, bless her cotton socks, but she's from the West Coast, and Jimmy Kimmel did this amazing expose where they went out on the streets in California on Super Tuesday, and they filmed a bunch of people and asked them if they voted. And a whole bunch of people lied. like, because there was no vote in California on Super
That's
Tuesday.
hilarious.
And like literally you had across the board, whether it was Trump or Sanders or Hillary, you had people literally making up all these complete shady stories about what they got up to and what they did. So anyway, my friend, who's this huge, like obsessive cult-like, mentality towards Bernie Sanders, and the whole, they can do nothing wrong. She posts it and she goes, and I'm proud to say that there was not one liar for Bernie Sanders among them because we don't lie. And I went, excuse me. Liars are across all demographics.
Yeah, exactly.
Bernie Sanders was covered in there if you pay attention. And I literally had to point it out to her because she kept on saying, no, I don't think there's anybody in there. And I'm like, are we watching the same video? Are we watching the same? But that's the cognitive dissonance that's going on with people right now, that they will not even see reality. It's kind of like 9/11, where you're like, okay, building number 7, it's right there. And they're like, no, it never happened.
Well, and think about, too, like, if these people can lie on the spot like that to whoever was interviewing them, think about how much more they lie to themselves.
We'll see.
Right? And that's the most powerful part of it, is, like, people are so indoctrinated and just, frankly, insane that they just, their whole reality is a web of lies.
I vote for Hillary because she's a woman. She stands up for us. I'm like, really? Just read Roger Stone and Robert Morrow's book, The Clinton's War on Women.
But they don't even have to read any of the information. It's just kind of common sense. It's like, watch the woman's body language and her tells. I mean, the layer of slime on there is so potent and so thick. I mean, how are people not paying attention to these tells anymore? Like, the intuition has been robbed from us. The programming.
Except that's the problem with Bernie Sanders is, I mean, maybe a really adept person could tell otherwise, but he appears very sincere.
Grandpa. Lovable grandpa.
Exactly. Like
I think he is sincere.
We need $15 minimum wage.
I don't
we need to
think
have
he is,
universal health care.
But regardless of whether he's sincere or not, that's half the reason people are voting for him.
Of course.
I think. I mean,
Plus, he was really good. He was really good in that movie Up.
Yeah.
I was good in that movie Kung Fu Panda, but no. And so, I mean, obviously, when you have a lot of former Ron Paul supporters, and admittedly, Ron Paul didn't always have libertarian conservative backers. Some of them were more, liberal left. But still, I've met so many former Ron Paul supporters who are now into the Bernie camp. And I think a lot of it is
Planet K.
I don't get that. I that's ridiculous.
But
to
how
me.
many times do they need to have the wool pulled over their eyes before they finally wake up and realize that they've got, these demographic think tanks that are literally programming that know which crowd needs to be massaged and manipulated?
The think
and they're
tanks
the
are
crowd.
smarter than they are, and they're always 2 steps ahead. That's why they have someone like Bernie out there, because it's like that release valve of, we still have a choice. We still have someone
and they don't.
championing the people.
Well, then, if Bernie
really
really wanted to get elected, he should have basically curb stomped Hillary with the emails. He was like, we should not go into the emails on this debate.
Somebody's watched American History X one too many times. But
he's a party guy. He said he's going to support Hillary if he's not.
But see,
the candidate.
I was just about to say that's how much he's for the people. No way. He literally has said that he will back the establishment. The thing that he seems to be pretending that he's fighting, he actually has literally come and be like, yeah, I'll back Hillary if I have to. It's like,
Rand Paul did the same thing.
Wet noodle.
Well, they're all a bunch of dorks.
It'll be great when they steal the election from Bernie and then turn all of those Bernie lovers into either independents or anarchists.
Or they'll vote for Trump.
Or back to resource-based economy. I have a lot of Zeitgeist movement friends that are big.
Oh my God,
Trump
I do too.
Bernie guys.
Oh my God, yeah.
It's like, I thought y'all were building this new anti-capitalist system that's completely separate from all this.
It's COINTELPRO. Basically, Bernie is someone that is controllable, so they put all the rebels and the anarchists into filtering into something that they're actually running at the base of it.
What evidence is there for that?
Okay, I would say there's no direct evidence, but it's more like the people in power are smart, and they're going to do all the smart things that you would expect them to do. And there's no way that they would.
But natural things actually also happen organically.
Natural things
happen.
Always
contrived.
It's not always
Illuminati.
But those things are improbable at the higher levels. Sure, in your average.
Bernie Sanders running for president is improbable. Why is that improbable?
To be that successful and get that much voice. Yeah, absolutely.
I think that something's taking place in this country right now, and there's a reason why these quote-unquote anti-establishment candidates have so much favor. It was with the Tea Party, Occupy, and now we see it manifesting in Trump.
It's a national populist movement. The fact that Trump is actually...
People are fed up.
He's the only nationalist on the Republican candidacy.
That doesn't mean they can't, co-opt the opposition, too.
Do you want to hear what's coming out?
Yes, it can happen.
Do you want to hear what's coming out, Glenn?
Hang on, really, really quick. Who's the biggest funder and supporter for Bernie Sanders, right? Move On. Who owns Move On?
Soros.
Yeah. Thank you. Done.
Therefore, the whole thing is a fraud? No. And the biggest funder of him are small donations from people that genuinely want his support.
Well, keep in mind, too, he's a senator. He's not just a congressman. The senators have a lot more power. It's
but then there's
a lot easier to co-opt.
And then there's the anti-Trump resentment. Have you heard the crap that's coming out of Glenn Beck's mouth lately?
Oh, well, it's coming out of a lot of
love Glenn Beck.
It's a lot of
before he lost his marbles, he's saying, we need to fast. I'm going to fast for Ted Cruz. Scalia.
Well, you can't eat boogers if you're fasting for Cruz.
Scalia died. God killed Scalia so that Ted Cruz would get nominated. Now he's saying he wants to stab
him.
Donald Trump.
Well, look, here's the thing. There's obviously a character. There's a character assassination going on, and it's from so many angles because the donor class, the elites, don't own this guy. I mean, goodness gracious! Now I have this little love thing for Newt Gingrich, who's like, well, he hasn't been initiated into the secret societies, and it's like, whoa, did you just say that?
That's crazy.
That's amazing. Amazing.
We will pick that up in the second hour of Be Brave Radio, where we actually talk about how mainstream media is now covering secret societies.
I love it.
I'm Leland Freeman.
I'm Elizabeth Egan Everett. John Bush.
And we are joined by
Chris,
Danny,
from The Crypto Show. We'll be back after the short break. Right after this at Locust Radio. And welcome back to hour number 2 of Be Brave Radio here on the Logos Radio Network on this March 5th, 2016, brought to you by Brave New Books, Hill Country Home Improvement, Nature's Pure Organics, Merck Superfoods, and Cabo Bob's Burritos.
And The Crypto Show.
And when we last left the final...
That show's lame, by the way.
And when we were finishing out hour number 1 here on Be Brave Radio, Elizabeth was talking about Newt Gingrich, talking about secret societies on mainstream media, it's like a light switch that went off. They never used. Wasn't secret society supposed to be secret? Now you have mainstream media actually picking this up.
I think every conspiracy theorist out there who have been fighting the good fight for years and years of full force ridicule from the herd fell over in their chairs in glee and redemption because that was pretty amazing.
And it came from Newt Gingrich.
Don't take the bait, though.
Well,
you always got to think of it at a deeper level.
No, I understand because you're right. It's like, well, he came out. That was very interesting. Like, here's our demographic being massaged, right? So I get it. Just
Except
like with Bernie supporters.
Like, for instance, Newt Gingrich, he's not really that popular anymore. And if anything, it's kind of considered a joke. So if he brings up that topic by association is considered a joke.
But
he's not considered. People still respect Newt Gingrich in the Republican
I'm sure there
world.
are some people.
The very fact that Trump is like the little rumor, but that he might actually pick him as his VP, which I hope he doesn't.
Yeah, Steve Stockman
please
would be a good choice. I mean, Danny, you've interviewed him a couple times on the Crypto Show. He would be a great choice for vice president, or even Steve Forbes have the double businessman ticket.
Yeah, the best thing about Steve Stockman is every time he's been elected, it's only been for one term. So obviously he's doing a good enough job that they want to kick him out.
It needs to be someone who's not a secret society insider, because Reagan was the first president that apparently didn't have a bunch of ties and affiliation to the Council on Foreign Relations and the secret society.
Except there's a picture of him with like 30 members of the Scottish Rite as he's like signing something.
Well,
interesting.
And he had George H.W. Bush as his vice president.
Well, that was kind of, if you listen to this whole story about that, it was originally supposed to be Jack Kemp. It was supposed to be Jack Kemp originally, but then if you look at the Roger Stone book signing from the Nixon Secret Book, which is on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Brave New Books, he said it was originally supposed to be Jack Kemp, but at the time, they had this rumor go out that Jack Kemp was gay, and at the time, 1980, the Republican Party was completely intolerant to homosexuality. Yeah. And so then they were going to say, do a co-presidency with Gerald Ford, who was given the presidency because he was part of the Warren Commission.
I was just going to say he was on the Warren Commission.
And so, exactly. and if you look at the first few months of Reagan's presidency, and then he got shot by Hinckley with all the connections to the Bush family, and then you look at the remaining, 7.5 years, it was like night and day. Because if you look at Reagan, he was a Democrat turned Republican, former president of the Screen Actors Guild, and then a very good governor, low limited government type governor of California, which would be completely unheard of right now. You would never be able to get a Reagan as governor of California now, let alone even the governor of Texas.
Well, I don't even know if it's true. I'd like to get fact checked on that with the California and being a small government, because Reagan was supposed to be small government as president, and he wasn't.
Well, because he got shot. And they basically said if you don't,
they scared him.
They scared him. And he said next time we're not going to miss. And if you look at his interviews on in the 70s, say on was it Tonight Show of Johnny Carson, he sounds just like Ron Paul.
But his votes and his positions, he had record deficits and all sorts of terrible unconservative things. They're all fraud.
Yeah. This is after he got shot.
Iran-Contra.
That was all that was all part of the 12 years that Bush 41 was president.
I'm sure it was after he was shot. I bet he was making poor decisions before.
It's like that Bill Hicks joke where he talks about JFK, or what is it? The president being brought in, and like a little video screen scrolls down, and then they show JFK getting shot. And they go,
footage.
Any questions? You're going to do what we tell you to do.
What's of interest is that in the media, in the entertainment media, the two big studios that are actually putting out material with these messages embedded in them is Disney with the Marvel movies, as well as Fox with various stuff such as the X-Files and Kingsman: The Secret Service. That was
it's all revelation of the method stuff. And again, look, within the secret societies, all of them, you will find different lines, right? And they're all at war with each other, right? Even in Masonry, you're going to find what's called the line of the white versus the line of the black, and all depending on your psychological makeup, which they watch very carefully, they will put you into certain sections where you do your job and you fit in very well. And they're basically all at war with each other right now. That's what we're watching. Whether it's Scroll and Key, whether it's Skull and Crossbones, whether it's, there's all these different groups. It's even the cults like Scientology and the Hare Krishnas. You're going to have different sections in there.
And that leads
paradigms.
And that leads us to the Kesha case, which you've actually flipped 180 degrees on after doing some research on what's really going on.
Wait. I did not flip 180 degrees on. Excuse me? I have always had a very specific opinion about it just because I walked that road. I don't support, like everyone's maybe shocked at this, but I do not support Kesha, being all upset about having to still be owned by Sony, because guess what? I walked her road. And very, very specifically, I was given very specific invitations to go in and get involved in things that I didn't believe in. And guess what? I said no thank you. She said yes. She, step by step, agreed to do satanic videos, agreed to, have all of her groupies send in, their baby teeth and have her make little necklaces. And it was all so cool and sexy.
Is that
when
a
she
real
was
thing?
No, really. When she did so much harm on like our younger generation with like the kind of stuff that she did, Illuminati, occult, like really dark black magic stuff. And she loved it when she was up on top. And then, too bad, so sad,
And then Taylor Swift's response when she gave her $250,000 for a legal fund, saying this is for all female artists.
Yeah. It's
how's this helping you?
No, I'm sorry. This just like the whole thing is a big joke because Taylor's absolutely owned as well. I mean, it's like when you watch the Oscars and you're watching Biden, who's like really creepy, let me talk about cuckolding all of the Senate members when they come in with all their kids and he has his hands all over them, he does so he's there introducing Lady Gaga, who's another, mare's nest in herself. And they're all like, we want to really protect the women out there from sexual abuse. It's like, excuse me, this woman literally, if you saw her videos that she's, got out there with R. Kelly, who's this major sexual predator,
she's
filmed
in a video
videos with Terry Richardson, who's a major sexual molester. It's like, are you kidding? Do you get the joke here?
In that video, she is actually being sexually molested.
Yes, and being anesthetized, and so she can't do anything about it.
It's total hypocrisy.
And all this is being cheered on by Lena Dunham, who admitted in her autobiography she molested her sister on multiple occasions.
And by the way, with Lady Gaga, Biden introducing her, and then what's her name? Michelle Obama also introduced best.
That was a couple years ago.
A couple years ago, and then of course Lady Gaga also had that Intel commercial, which was introduced at the Golden Globes, maybe it was the Grammys recently. But my point is, you have this convergence, which really is only a convergence out in the open now between, the government and entertainment and, of course, big corporations.
Well, yeah.
But it's always been that way, is the thing, is what I'm saying.
Well, and the fact
they're just kind of opening it up now.
And the fact that Hillary's paying off Katy Perry and Britney Spears to endorse her. Come on!
Well, I mean, because unfortunately, I know an awful lot of young women and young girls who look up to those pop stars and will do anything that they promote, and these are young, soft, malleable minds, being programmed. I'll never forget being with a bunch of little girls, who were very badly brought up and, watching one of them run over in the mall and start twerking in front of a mirror. And this was a little 8-year-old girl. And I think it was one of those moments where I was like, oh my God. I am concerned for our future.
Well, you have the hypersexualization of kids, especially.
Well, absolutely.
The fact that many people, high and low in the entertainment industry, are pederasses, and that's being covered up.
Well, and there is a subtle indoctrination going on there. I mean, you also have to look at what happened before all the Biden, Lady Gaga stuff during the show, where they were basically promoting the 50 Shades of Grey soundtrack, and then they've got all these bondage dancers all swirling around. And think about the message of that actual film, regardless of your fetishes. That also is a questionable, sexual abuse situation there. So there they are rewarding it. And then they've got Biden coming on, basically pushing this whole college pledge thing about sexual abuse with Lady Gaga. I mean, do you get the joke? People here, there's so much of a subtext being run.
And the fact this is being run on all the award shows, the Grammys, the Golden Globes.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and just to sum it up real quick, to paraphrase George Orwell's book, All Art is Propaganda, which is a really great book, all media is psychological warfare.
Yes, it is.
And this is exactly what it is.
Social engineering at its finest.
But what's of interest, though, is I think this is actually starting to turn people off and people are actually starting to wake up, because if you look at the ratings of these award shows, specifically the Grammys and the Oscars this year, It was all-time lows.
Yeah, 8-time low. It's really hopeful to see that it's a strange chasm, I think, that I'm seeing happening, because as many people that I'm seeing wake up, which is really exciting to see, I am pretty shocked to see, for example, some of my friends on the West Coast or whatever. I'm still seeing an awful lot of like going to sleep and taking the blue pill, using the analogy from The Matrix. But
I love Roger's phrase the best when he got banned from MSNBC. It's like, I've never been on. What am I losing out? 200,000 people watching at any given point. There's millions of people that watch either Fox or InfoWars or go on to Drudge Report.
But here's the difference, though. I don't think that the decline in viewership for things like the Academy Awards is necessarily because people are disillusioned with all the BS. I think a lot of it is just, of course, there's other media as alternatives, but keep in mind there's still a really hardcore number of people who religiously watch stuff like that. And more importantly, a much broader viewership watches clips from that show on YouTube.
Yeah.
Right? So they'll see the Biden, they'll just be like, well, I don't really care about the whole show, but I want to see Biden and Lady Gaga.
Yeah.
And so they'll watch that and they'll still get that indoctrination.
Yeah, they will.
So it's still very powerful. And even if you don't see it, people in their sort of herd mentality go along with liking the Grammys and liking what goes on there because it's the thing to do. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So it's still very powerful is all I'm saying.
And in the meantime, the people that are there, they're just completely delusional. Like, for example, when Leo DiCaprio in his speech after
climate change,
he has a bunch of mansions across the country, and he rode private jets.
Well, something like 6 different jet sessions in 6 months. And yachts, and yet he's asking us to watch our carbon footprint.
Do you realize how much fuel these planes use just on startup? The fact with jet planes, they go by pounds, not gallons.
Look, there's a whole, hypocritical situation here, because also people called out Chris Rock, who is the host, is very much about pushing diversity. On one hand, I absolutely honor
diversity as long as you're not Caucasian.
But then here they are, they really pushed it the whole show, and then they did this ridiculous Asian joke, and you're like, wait, what? They brought out these little Asian kids and basically made fun of them. And, and it's like, wait a minute, you can't have it both ways. Don't do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, are you kidding me?
It's a circus. And all of these people and these viewers and people that actually buy into this mentality, they are part of the electorate. And some of them may be apathetic and not vote at all, but there's a lot of ignoramuses and people that are completely mind controlled that are voting, which in my opinion is all the more reason that we need to build institutions and networks so we can insulate ourselves from this body politic that is completely content with the status quo. Am I right?
Amen. Am I right?
And as we come back from the break, because we're wrapping up this segment, we'll discuss that further. How can we kind of do the sideways crab dance where we let everybody be really stupid and insane, but we can get on and enjoy our lives and thrive and really be sovereign beings.
We move to the moon.
I like that word, thrive.
That'd be nice.
To the moon! Oh, you Bitcoin guys.
Leland.
And this is Be Brave Radio, brought to you by Brave New Books, Hill Country Home Improvement, Burke's Superfoods. It's
the crypto show.
All sorts of good stuff.
Cabo Bob's and Nature's Pure Organics. We'll be back right after this.
This is the Logos Radio Network.
Welcome back to Be Brave Radio here on the Logos Radio Network. Before we get into talking about Danny and Chris's experience driving to and from Anarchapulco, I'll briefly touch on something that we are doing a ton of research on, and that's the Chesapeake Energy CEO, where he died in a car crash.
Aubrey McClendon.
1 hour after he was, a few hours after he was indicted.
I immediately thought of Michael Hastings.
Yeah, and there's just a lot of stuff that just doesn't add up, and we will talk about that in the coming weeks with more research. But it's just we know about that when we are doing research on that. Anyway, on to your experience with Anarchapulco.
First, what is Anarchapulco? Not everybody knows.
So Anarchapulco is an anarchist conference that takes place in Acapulco, hence Anarchapulco. And this year's was the second annual one, and it's put on by Jeff Berwick of Anarchast, the biggest anarchist podcast on the internet, as well as he's the guy behind Dollar Vigilante. And so it took place this year from March 19th to the 21st. And what's cool about it, well, there's a lot of cool stuff, is aside from the official like 3 days of it, there's all sorts of other kind of conferences and activities going on before and afterwards.
They're literally still there partying. I mean, a lot of people just stay for an extra week
or an extra lifetime.
Yeah.
Some people move down there.
Yeah,
a
haven't
lot
they
of them
moved
just
there?
stay. Yeah, they just go down there for the party, and then, well, I'm not leaving.
Get out of America, out of everything's falling apart here. Let's go move.
Yeah, and like several people, and people who might not have otherwise thought of it before they went to the last year's in Acapulco, the first one, and they were just so moved by Mexico, Acapulco, and the anarchists who are already down there that they were just inspired to move. So
I've had so many people tell me, you need to go to Guatemala, you need to go to Ecuador, Costa Rica, and it's been very tempting. That has been something on my mind. But at the same time, for me, it was more coming to Austin. I felt like if there's any state that has a chance of succeeding through these rough times, perhaps that we might have to deal with, I felt like Texas might have a chance. I'd like to succeed, but
right.
if we could do that real soon, that'd be nice.
Well, the fact is that Texas actually entered the Union under treaty versus annexation, which is pretty much every other state. So we have the option to do that. Now, some people would argue after Reconstruction that was all null and void, and I say I don't think so. I really don't think so.
What's the difference between annexation and treaty, though?
Treaty is that Texas voluntarily joined the Union because
that's always been the case, though, with every state.
It was usually through forced annexation, though. Texas is unusual. That it was an independent sovereign nation that joined the United States.
No, I'm sorry. You're right. Because a lot of states were former territories. You're right. That is a difference.
And many people would argue that's null and void anymore because of Reconstruction. But if you look at Reconstruction, it was a military occupation of the South that all the states were dissolved and they were basically forced to accept
slavery.
Slavery was going to.
Although I still think the territories voted. I'd have to look into that.
Slavery was on its way out anyways. If you look at the history,
Abraham Lincoln was a dirty racist.
Ulysses S. Grant kept his slaves, and who was the general? Robert E. Lee freed his slaves.
Yeah,
and this was before the end of the war.
Most of the founding fathers kept their slaves. I mean,
Emancipation Proclamation.
Even Thomas Jefferson.
Emancipation Proclamation didn't do anything to free the slaves in the South. It was just a feel-good document, more or less. It's been. If you look at public schools, and if you look at them basically trying, and you had this interesting analogy. If schools are run by Walmart, who do they support?
Yeah, I mean, just think about when people support public schooling, which is public schooling is communist, by the way. Like, it is one of the 10 planks of Marx's Communist Manifesto. Like, there's no denying
Common
that.
Core, anyone?
Yeah, I never thought about that actually. Yeah,
think about it. There's no direct tuition, and yet you're paying property tax, but your kids are basically forced to go to these public schools.
Right,
otherwise it's truant.
It's compulsory, just like Marx wanted. And anyway, it's virtually universal. 90% of people go to public schooling. But yeah, I mean,
not my kids.
Well, exactly. Good for you. Really?
Am I right?
No, and I really respect people who take upon the financial and time and other burden to
try running a bookstore at the same time.
I know it's not easy.
But you were saying about the connection to Walmart, though, right?
Yeah,
you had a great analogy.
Yeah, I mean, Leland basically just said it. But if Walmart ran a school, would that school, do you think, be pro or anti-Walmart in what it teaches?
Right.
It would be pro-Walmart. And so with public schooling, of course the public schools are going to be pro-state. Even I went to private school through high school, my whole life until UT, and all the books are except for like the religious texts, obviously they're the same as public schools by and large. All the curriculum is state accredited and approved, so you get the exact same thing even in private schools.
But they're snootier.
But they're a little snootier, definitely.
Yeah.
But so you can't escape it. And I remember even going to private school, it promotes all this nonsense.
Yeah.
It promotes state interests. So of course,
authoritarianism.
And I was absolutely, the school that I went to was this little girls' school, and it was very, very posh, and we were absolutely being trained to be Stepford wives. And like I was this goth girl that was completely hated by the rest of the girls.
I can't see that.
Suddenly I had to be a debutante, right? Like we all had to be debutantes. And we had to take ballroom dancing and wear gloves and everything. Nice. And the whole thing's a big meat market. And all these little girls who all look like copies of each other, think like each other, dress like each other. They got the pearls around their neck with their little cute little bags.
Yeah,
and then,
that's true.
and
did you grow up in the South? I forget.
I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio.
Oh, you're from Cleveland?
Dude.
My dad's family's from Cleveland.
No way.
I like the Drew Carey show.
I escaped from Cleveland. For me, to me, they represent a bunch of educated idiots. I mean,
John Kasich
they
country.
really, I'm not.
Moderate.
Chips and Kasich.
Well, no, and what's funny is I'm surprised you come from Cleveland describing that. I mean, I guess that's kind of common throughout the country, but in the South, it's very common.
Oh, well,
like the sort of debutante balls and all that sort of stuff. There was some of that when I grew up going to private school.
Yes, the peer pressure is unbelievable. Like from so many different angles where, I would have, the women coming up to me being like, sweetie, do you want to change your lipstick? It's a little dark. And I had this little French men's morning cross that I'd be wearing for the pictures, and I'd be like, no. Would you like to? Alone, I was way too serious, but they're like, would you like to smile in the picture with all the other girls? No, the weight of the world. Well, I was the weight of the world. I was reading all these books, and all these other.
Harry Potter.
No,
See, that's what they're teaching in these schools, and not how broken our immigration system is.
Cults and secret societies and esoteric stuff.
And what she's talking about is just the social side of it. You've got that social
women.
I used to get beaten up by the boys. I used to get mooned. I had a real.
Well, if you look at why people vote certain ways, for example, a lot of people vote Democrat because of these social issues. Then they just are completely blinded by social issues, don't see the economics that the Republican Party, the Libertarian Party, or just anarchism brings up.
And you're also taught in history class, even in a private school, again, a private conservative school that I went to, your textbooks teach you, if it weren't for the government and the progressive movement, X, Y, and Z would have happened. And the fact of the matter is that things like, for instance, child labor laws, like for one, were brought about by unions because child labor represented competition. Two, if you're starving to death, I would rather send my kid to earn money and potentially put himself in danger than to starve to death. And three, as people got wealthier, they obviously didn't need their kids to go work, so they stopped doing that. So the child labor laws, even insofar as they were supposed to protect children, were after the fact because they came into being as people were getting wealthier and not needing to send their kids to the factory.
Revisionist history. Go down to the Texas Capitol if you have a chance to do so, especially for our listeners in Austin on 89.1 TXLR, and look at the Civil War monuments that they have there. It says specifically, our Southern soldiers fought against the Union because they felt that the Union was not following their own Constitution anymore. That's the reason why the South broke off. And that's why there's a lot of this nationalist movement, secessionist movement in the Southern states, because they feel that the current national government isn't following their Constitution, and the courts are basically legislating from the bench and twisting these amendments around. I mean, for example, the gay marriage amendment, it has nothing to do about marriage. It had everything to do with usurping states' rights, going against state elections that change the constitutions, and neutering the 10th Amendment.
Well, and by the way,
there's some weird interpretation of the 14th Amendment.
I don't even obviously I'm not a constitutionalist, but I want to say something. I don't even like saying that they're going against the Constitution. What people really mean is they're going against the Bill of Rights half the time, which of course the Bill of Rights was sort of attached to the Constitution, but it was kind of an afterthought.
And we will pick that up after the short break here on the Logos Radio Network on Be Brave Radio. Stick with us.
Snacking can make you healthier, really. In fact, one tasty treat that's often considered a naughty indulgence should move right to the top of your list. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht, and I'll tell you what it is in just a moment.
Privacy is under attack. When you give up data about yourself, you'll never get it back again. And once your privacy is gone, you'll find your freedoms will start to vanish too. So protect your rights, say no to surveillance, and keep your information to yourself. Privacy, it's worth hanging on to. This public service announcement is brought to you by StartPage.com, the private search engine alternative to Google, Yahoo, and Bing. Start over with StartPage.
It's time to go crazy for nuts. Forget about nuts being fattening. In moderation, they can actually help power up weight loss because they're packed with protein, nutrients, and fiber. A study by the International Journal of Obesity found that overweight adults who ate almonds as part of their diet plans lost more weight than those who ate more complex carbohydrates. And while you're losing weight, nuts can help prevent heart disease, cancer, and premature aging, especially walnuts. Researchers have crowned them the king of nuts because they contain nearly twice the health-enhancing antioxidants of other nuts. Plus, they're the richest in omega-3s. So go ahead. You can afford to go nuts for nuts. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht. More news and information at CatherineAlbrecht.com.
Chemtrails. Live Free Speech Radio. LogosRadioNetwork.com.
Then when I get back on my feet again, I can climb so high that I won't feel low. And I keep on praying, baby. Then when I get where I am going, you'll be showing me a blue sky road. Open my mind, no longer blind, I know I'm coming on.
Welcome back to Be Brave Radio here on the Logos Radio Network, brought to you by Brave New Books, Hill Country Home Improvement, Burke's Superfoods, Nature's Pure Organics, and Cabo Bob's.
And the Crypto Show.
And the Crypto Show of our special guest co-hosts, Danny and Chris. I'm Leland Freeman, joined by John Bush and Elizabeth Egan Everett. And before we had to go to break, Chris was talking about the Bill of Rights, and this is how we'll lead back into our conversation about y'all's experience driving through Mexico to get to and from Anacapulco. Tell us more about the Bill of Rights, Chris.
Well, I mean, just I'm kind of playing or quibbling here as I use that word off air. Obviously the Constitution itself limits the powers of the government or the between the branches and enumerates certain things or talks about things.
10th Amendment specifically, powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution nor prohibited by it to the state. I would say nor prohibited by it to the states are reserved to the states respectively or to the people.
Right, and so just
the people.
That's the one part of the Bill of Rights. And so just my point is the Bill of Rights was kind of added as an afterthought, and because people realized that the Constitution was far from perfect and far from sufficient to protect the rights of the average person.
Actually, it was added. It wasn't an afterthought specifically. They wrote it and they realized that they needed it, but as part of the ratification deal, those would be the first 10 amendments, would be the Bill of Rights.
Well, I mean, semantics maybe. To me, that sounds like an afterthought.
It was,
in a sense.
it was to help sell it to the people so there wouldn't be total outrage. The whole Constitutional Convention in it of itself was a complete fraud, and many people say, let's go back to the Constitution, constitutional republic this, constitutional republic that, but they fail to recognize that the U.S. Constitution actually created far more government than existed before. And in fact, it created the largest central government that had existed in history up until that time. Some could argue Rome or Greece, but we've seen how it's grown now. And it was authored by lawyers, industrialists, big fat cats, and it was passed in a manner that was unconstitutional. The Constitution itself was passed in an unconstitutional manner because per the Articles of Confederation, it required unanimous adoption from all of the 13 colonies. And in fact, it was so tyrannical that little itty-bitty Rhode Island did not want to join the Union. So one of the very first acts of Congress, absent Rhode Island, the new U.S. Constitution, the United States federal government, was to institute an embargo on their fellow colony and to coerce the state of Rhode Island into becoming a member of the United States of America. The whole thing is ripe with fraud, tyranny, and centralization, and should be tossed out and not relied upon to secure our freedom.
What? They're going to bring in something that's going to really be for the people by the people?
No,
please.
No, let them go to hell. Well, they can do what they want. We need to focus on our
Unfortunately, they're trying to take us with them.
You start from financially. I mean, look at what they do with the national speed limit or even the DWI requirements. They withhold your federal highway funds.
Well, right. I mean, so that's just, the Articles of Confederation were substituted with the Constitution, which was far more centralized. That was betrayal. Patrick Henry called the Constitutional Convention, or he referred to it as he smelled a rat.
There was a media blackout, too. It was in total secrecy.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And secrecy, basically, it was the Bilderberg of its day. You had all of these essentially American aristocrats.
One percenters.
Private. I mean, basically.
Guys wearing tights.
And I'm not saying that getting back to the Constitution wouldn't be better than what we have now. It would.
This is true.
But, and when I said.
I mean, that's my point, is that it's like, I feel like, yes, every single thing that you said is valid. However, I also feel like it has protected us to a certain extent through certain decisions through the years. I mean, come on, can we honor it as well? This whole black or white absolute kind of thing is what gets us all of us.
Think about it, because take it down to the local level. We had a really good party chair, James Dickey, but instead the voters by 6,000 decided to put Robert Morrow in there. And
why was he good, though? Because he didn't do anything? Was he shaking things up? Was he promoting libertarianism?
Yes. He was a pro-gun guy. He was pro-liberty. He also was supporting candidates that were like Don Zimmerman that wanted to get rid of these get rid of a lot of these restrictions and draconian regulations that were costing us money and freedom. But we put Morrow in there. Well, I didn't put Morrow there. I voted for James. But the thing is that a lot of people say, "Oh, this will be chaos and bring it down." But you'll end up when Batista fell in Cuba. It's like, okay, you have a couple days of celebration, but then you have this power vacuum where this tyrannical, the Travis Democratic Party, for example, comes in and you get all their candidates again, and then it just becomes more of the same. Think about it.
Just let it all.
And I'm still wondering what actually happened at Anacapulco.
Yeah, and getting back to that, you drove through a country which didn't have some Bill of Rights, and didn't you get shaken up by the policia and the military, where they had to basically pay?
You had some wild stuff happen.
Yeah, they actually paid them. You had to pay them essentially bribe money to get through a checkpoint.
Did they take Bitcoin? It's a lot easier than going to court. So, I mean, it was pretty scary.
There's no shame in bribing the police to get them off your back.
So tell us,
it was really scary that they said you either pay or we're going to take your vehicle.
What?
So yeah, we ended up paying. Luckily, we had our money kind of separated, so they didn't know how much we had. So they only took what they could see, which was about 500 pesos.
Or like our buddy basically made an offer, but it was kind of consistent with what was visible. So in other words, like had they seen all of our money, that offer of 500 pesos would have been insufficient, I think. And so we were very lucky because. Danny actually thought at first that some money that was due for the Ross Ulbricht appeals fund had been sitting up there, and luckily it wasn't. It was stashed away.
Oh my God! If they took money from Ross,
but it freaked us all. It freaked us all out for a second, thinking, "Oh my God, how much money do we have up there?" But we got away. Basically, $30 total, $10 a person. It could have been a lot worse.
But
and that was a lesson to us.
But this is Mexico, a police state where you don't have where it's illegal for civilians to have guns.
We're shaken down in the States,
That's only
though.
one instance. When I was in Acapulco, I was at a stoplight, and a motorcycle cop clipped my front bumper, and he just kept going. He looked back at me like, "Yeah, what do you want?"
Yeah, what
You don't pull your camera out.
What am I going to do?
Let's cop block him.
Yeah, what am I going to film him? Am I going to call Peaceful
No,
Streets?
you're going to cower with your tail between your legs and hope he doesn't put you in a cage.
See you later.
I don't think things are that much better here.
No,
Sure, it's not
Antonio will call you a
hot,
racist
constant tyranny, but the shakedown is more systematized, and we're more used to it. It's like a culture.
It's more
It's like a
formal.
classy, friendly. It's friendly fascism, is what it is at the end of the day. But it's fascism nonetheless.
Because the thing is, too, like, I mean, honestly, while Mexico is very dangerous between the cops and the cartels, if you, growing up Mexican, you will know how to deal with the cops.
Yeah,
And
there's a
it's typical-
savviness.
There's a
Cops
savviness.
come and try to snatch my
know
crops.
But as far as freedom of speech, I wouldn't even try it there.
Uh-huh.
Because you would disappear.
So that's why, sorry, I honor the First Amendment. I honor the Second Amendment. These are things that, sorry, I mean, I do feel like have protected us when we've got Mexico over there, basically.
Right.
First
people
Amendment.
But the Bill of Rights, that's what I'm saying, is the difference, kind
First
of.
Amendment.
Okay.
Congress shall not. Congress shall make no law. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise, therefore, of or abridging freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people to peacefully assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances.
Now watch me tell you how some of our doTERRA oils can cure A, B, and C, or how vitamin B17 can help fight cancer. That's the kind of stuff that gets you locked in prison. It's all doublethink. And one thing that Stefan Molyneux really blew my mind on
Yeah,
is,
he's awesome.
Sure, we've experienced relative freedom, personal and economic freedom in the States. However, that economic freedom has led to a vast increase in not only the standard of living, but also the revenue that the government takes. They have taken, we had economic freedom for the first time in history. They took all of the money and the human time and energy, as our friend Bart says, from Americans, and they used it to finance the biggest empire of bases and military industrial complex and coming up on a global government that we've ever seen. So yes, we've experienced relative freedom on our plantation, but our energy and our value and our labor was leveraged to create a massive global totalitarian dictatorship.
And let me add something to that real quick is, aside from fudging like inflation and GDP statistics to justify bigger government by basically downplaying how big it is, one thing that they've also put into the minds of even some of the biggest anarchists and economists is that whole concept of government as a percentage of GDP. And what I mean is, well, historically, the government hasn't been more than, say, 30% of GDP. But the fact of the matter is that there is no really logical basis for arguing that the government should maintain the same percentage of GDP of the economy as the economy grows. In other words, just because the economy grows doesn't mean that the government has to sort of keep that plateau.
It's
pace.
interesting that and
they justify, in fact, de facto government growth even by keeping it at the same GDP percentage.
It's interesting.
Does that make sense?
It's interesting. The founding fathers kind of realized the growth of government, where they go, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of the free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That was meant to prevent the government from becoming a tyrannical monster.
But think about that too. Even the Second Amendment there, well-regulated militia. How is that defined then? How has that come to be defined today? If anything, that probably allowed the federal government to step in and put its fingers in it.
It didn't mean regulated in that sense.
And we will pick this conversation up after this break here on Be Brave Radio on the Logos Radio Network. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Be Brave Radio here on the Logos Radio Network. We have Danny and Chris from the Crypto Show sitting with us this week as we talk about their crazy journey to and from Acapulco. And why don't you tell us about your experience at the border of the United States and Mexico?
Well, we got to the border. So I lost my passport the first day I got to Acapulco, literally within 10 minutes of getting off the plane. Between getting not on the plane, I had it. In fact, a guy I went to the conference with who happened to be on the plane with me saw me with it once we got off the plane. So anyway, I tried searching for it, coming back to the airport, calling, nothing. Someone must have either like pickpocketed it from me or I left it somewhere and they took it. But
wouldn't be surprised at the checkpoint they took it and you forgot to take it back and then they just pocketed it themselves.
Who knows? But anyway, so my point is, we get to the border, and Danny and the other guy who's with us, Hector Combo or Hector Cubillos, his real name, told me I should tell the border guys that instead of the real story, that the military guys who shook us down took it. And I was skeptical of this story, and I was like, no. I don't know if that sounds.
I totally made that up.
Yeah, I guess Danny was actually the one who made it up specifically. Yeah. But I was like, no, it's not plausible, or I'll just tell them the truth because, web lies kind of thing. Well, we get to the border, and strangely, the first thing they asked us for were birth certificates.
Right.
Which is really weird, especially considering, like, who carries a birth certificate?
What are they, Donald Trump looking for Obama?
Yeah, am I right? Born in Kenya, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
so the guy Hector that is traveling with us, he's a resident alien. He's not a natural-born U.S. citizen.
So all he has is a green card.
All he's got is his green card. So when we come to the booth, the Border Patrol agent, she wants to see our papers. What are your papers? So we, I break out my passport and everything, and that's cool. And then I explain to her that Chris is missing his passport. And,
why did you speak on his behalf?
Because I was driving. So I'm talking to the lady, and then Hector.
And I'm talking to a little bit, but yeah.
Hector, of course, he just shows out his green card. He only has to provide one form of identification. Well, we have to show two. We're born in the U.S. We have to show more documents than.
That shows you how broken the immigration system is here.
What is wrong with this picture?
Yeah, it shows you how broken the border and immigration system is here in the States.
So anyway, I tell the lady, yeah, man, we got robbed by the military police. They got us for $500. Well, she thought dollars, so I went ahead and let her think it was dollars, so that it seemed like it was a large amount. And then I told her, I paid the $500, and Chris refused to, so they kept his passport. She said, yeah, that happens all the time. and she was serious.
Yeah.
She totally believed it.
I can't. That doesn't even do it justice. I can't even remember exactly how she did it, but it was like when she heard it, there was like a pause, and that like the longest pause ever. Where like I'm like, oh my god, is she not buying it? And then she goes like, you know what? I totally believe that. Happens all the time. It was like out of some movie.
She said they usually set up a few blocks away from the entry and try to get you there.
Jeez Louise.
But when they had actually gotten us about 300 miles in, just as we came into.
Because Chris, you still have your driver's license, correct?
Still have my driver's license.
But that's not good enough anymore.
I even had a photo of my passport on my phone. But Danny's idea worked. It was the best idea we could have done.
Because that's what happens.
I knew we kept you around for
something. Welcome to reality.
You wanted to make the American side think that we were a victim of the Mexican
But this just shows on so many levels how broken the current immigration thing is, especially when the current administration wants to just bring in Syrian refugees by the truckload or by the boatload or by the plane load.
It's about the vote, and over the next several years, it's about shifting that. So
culture change.
Yeah.
Well, and the problem is, and I want to get back to narco poker just a couple more things, but the problem is too that we have a centralized immigration system. Like in an anarchist or more decentralized libertarian world, you would have communities, large and small, deciding immigration. It wouldn't be one person or
one size fits all.
Yeah, one size fits all for 300 million people over this giant landmass, right?
And then you have.
And there is such a thing as forced immigration too. So I'm not necessarily arguing that with this case. I mean, I'm not going to get into that. But you could make the argument that the Syrian refugee thing was forced immigration. That would not be that you could be against and still consistently be pro-immigration.
And then you have other instances such as a good friend of mine who got his PhD at the University of Texas, but he was from India. I think it was the H-1N1 visa. He had to go back as soon as he got his doctorate.
The bird flu visa.
And yet there's a whole bunch that has
the flu.
It's the H-1B or
H-1B, the H-1B visa.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing is that he had to go back to India as soon as he got his PhD. So he gets educated over here, gets educated a lot of it on our tax dollars over here, and yet all that resource is now being dumped back. And he wanted to stay here, and he was fully
he should have been able to.
And the fact that his culture homogenized himself, he spoke perfect English. He loved the American culture.
Better speak English. He's going to be in this country.
But the thing is, he had to go back there. He's now trying to find a professorship with a university here. But those 8 years that he was. No, that clock's not correct.
We're talking about the time clock for those of you in radio.
Like what?
Yeah,
that sounds A, B, and C.
Well, the fact is that the 8 years that he was here for his PhD doctorate, that didn't count towards years he could become a permanent resident and then citizen.
It's very perverse. But let's just finish up with the narco poker real quick.
Thank you.
It was we got across the border. Luckily, we got shaken down by the military. We actually went through at least, I would say, 5 military checkpoints. Now, admittedly, that was driving across the entirety of Mexico, but that's still a lot. We probably would have gone through a lot more had it just been a busier day or something. And what's lucky is, if you're dumb enough like us to drive through Mexico.
Oops.
No. But Country Home Improvements, going on a road tour.
You're lucky I drove, or you'd still be there.
I know. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. That wasn't a jab at you. That was just a jab at, I don't know, just.
You guys got a lot of time to bond.
I would have had to.
Well, you flew down, didn't you? Did you fly down?
I flew down, but I couldn't fly back because of missing the passport. Yeah,
you should have just drove all along. That way, you wouldn't have missed the passport at all.
Well, yeah, but in hindsight, I guess that's true.
How long was the drive?
The thing, well, it was
24
it was
hours,
24
basically.
hours, and the thing that upset Chris the most is that he wasn't going to get a free rub down from the TSA flying back in. That's what he kept
Danny
complaining about.
Compensated for it. Gave me a free rub down.
Hand on the thigh, and then
even had some
on the
oil.
passenger seat.
It worked out pretty well.
Some essential oils from Brave New Books.
Some doTERRA essential oils. My favorite, the peppermint.
The crypto show after hours.
Yeah, don't use the Deep Blue Rub on your private parts.
Oh, well, I found that out the hard way.
Ouch.
But I just want to say, too, there were really good speakers. My favorite was Walter Block, economist at Loyola University. We did
He's
a
a
really
Bernie
good interview
supporter.
with him. Just kidding. Well, it's funny you say that. Were you aware he actually went to school with Bernie Sanders? He went to high school with Bernie Sanders. And
Is he one of
talked
these
about
alt-right libertarian figures?
that. I wouldn't say that. No, if
There's
anything,
one, though. Like, is it Gary North or one of these guys?
Probably,
that's like
I think Gary
big
North.
nativist, anti...
Gary North. Because if anything, Walter Block, he gets all the really difficult libertarian questions like abortion and certain aspects
he's
of
defending the
immigration.
undefendable.
Exactly. He's got 3 books in that series, actually. One just came out, I think. He talks about how to own bodies of water. So no, he's very logical and open-minded. He's not, I wouldn't call him far right.
I'm confusing with someone else.
Yeah, but anyway, it was a good time. We really appreciate Jeff Berwick for putting it on, and Nathan Freeman, no relation, to helping out with that as well, and some great speakers.
You saw one of my friends down there who I used to work with. long
Sasha.
ago. Yeah,
Day
Sasha
Game. He was
Daygame.
great.
No, he's a sweetheart. He's very lovable, very empathic, very funny, and he really does a really good thing for the men's movement. Teaching guys how to create attraction and how to carry conversations, especially if they're socially awkward.
Yeah, and I think it's really important.
Bring him to the
because-
libertarian movement.
I know.
We're working on it. We're
Bring him to
working
Brave
on
New
it.
Books. No, I really respect it because one, especially in this day and age, I think there are more men than ever who don't have the right social skills,
right?
Or certainly the romantic skills.
Yeah.
But beyond that, or even more importantly,
Even women, though,
fundamentally-
too.
And the women too.
Yeah, because
Absolutely.
here's what the fundamental issue is with that. At least what I discovered when I was working in that industry is that men and women, but especially men, no longer have their proper channels of rites of initiation.
That makes absolutely
The way the indigenous cultures used to have. And so we've got all these men who are pontificating and posturing around because that's what they think it is they're supposed to do when they really haven't discovered who they are as a man.
Right.
So it's a lot of grown men who are still in that Peter Pan kind of phase, the young boy phase.
And you wouldn't necessarily know it
It's
because
tough.
maybe in other aspects of their life
Yeah.
they seem adult and they seem competent and all
But
that.
they're wearing skinny jeans.
That's a different breed entirely.
Shout out to the yuppies there. Tuning into 89.1 FM.
I just want to say with Sasha Daygame,
Yeah.
he's a really smart guy. He
Sweetheart.
interviewed us, had some other conversations with him. And I really hate that he got such criticism because I'm sure there are more cynical,
He is,
a-hole-ish, not him, but, well, he might be
he
cynical.
can come
but,
off as that, like a little cynical, yeah.
But, he doesn't, I'm sure there are more sort of exploitative or misogynistic types within
there
those
are.
circles. And I'm not painting a broad stroke. I'm saying
No,
they
very
must
dangerous.
exist.
No, there are dangerous beings
Right.
within
Yeah,
that
but
world.
he's not that, from what I could tell.
Yeah, that I had to take a stand for as a female. It got me into a lot of trouble.
Well, I respect that because I'm sure it's really difficult to make that stand because those are often, very.
Well, they're psychopaths. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Hello. Yeah.
Well, Sasha definitely was.
No, he's a
and-
sweetheart.
And it really is about building confidence in people. And
Yeah.
that was really cool.
No,
so,
sweet.
Yeah. Anyway, we got like a little over a minute left. I'm just trying to think. We had a really good time with, what's her name?
Angel Clark.
Angel Clark Show, LRN.FM.
Yeah. She was fantastic. She was very hospitable. She let us crash at her place.
Yeah, we
Treated us
went
to
for
dinner.
lunch and ended up we woke up the next morning at her house hungover.
Danny was still hungover when he came back in the States, like 2 or 3 days later.
Oh, he was partying that whole week. But anyway, it was just a great experience.
I wish I could have gone. I'd like to.
Next year?
I remember when
I'd like
Danny,
to.
when I first took over the store, and Danny's always here. He lives here practically. He built this amazing studio. He used to say he didn't drink. No, I don't drink, and he'd have like 1 or 2. And now he's like freaking Anheuser-Busch over here.
1 or 2 kicks.
You're a bad influence on him, Chris.
I must have done it probably.
And
Well,
you with
Elizabeth-
your gluten-free beer.
That's
not beer.
I need someone to go up to the
That's
wheat
disgusting.
field to give me some. Elizabeth, we got like 15 seconds. We want to wish you adieu and good luck at your
Precinct convention.
Have
We do.
fun.
It should be.
Yeah, it should be exciting.
And we'll
Give
be,
them hell.
and we'll be back with the third hour Be Brave Radio here on the Logos Radio Network after this short news break. Stick with us.